Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from wherever you're joining this month's Reward Hour. Welcome to September session. Today we're going to be talking about global compensation and how much of an admin headache it is, or is it more of an employer brand win? What are the trade-offs? What's interesting to do? What's hard to do? Etc. Joining me today, I have Olive. Olive's joining us from TestGorilla, where she's the head of people and culture. Olive, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Really pleased to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me along. I'm looking forward to this conversation. As you said, I am head of people and culture at TestGorilla. I've been in the role for a year and a few months, I think, and have been at TestGorilla for 3.5 years now. I joined as chief of staff when we were, a nitty bitty startup, a little bit bigger now. We'll talk about that in a second. What does TestGorilla do? We are a talent discovery platform. So we help employers both source and hire and assess top talent according to the proven skills that candidates have. So we have tests and different ways of evaluating candidates that allow them to show their skills. And we give organizations a pool of literally millions of skills tested candidates so they can find the right people for the job. It's a really exciting place to be. And yeah, what a place to get stuck into my first head of people and culture role at such a sort of people focused product. Super exciting.
Totally. And I think it's really interesting that really interesting space. And I think that's where hiring is heading towards skills-based hiring, etc. But also really interesting that you joined first as chief of staff and then into this role. I see loads of similarities between those two roles.
Yeah, me too. Although I think that's because you're also a people leader. So chief of staff is such a sort of a nebulous role, right? And I approached it almost sort of subconsciously with that people hat on, and it sort of evolved into people. But and maybe you would have done similarly. I think other people can take it in whole different directions. But I agree. I also think chief of staff is very people-y.
Yes, and then look, I think in any case, they're definitely, hopefully, for people leaders, you get a good ally in the chief of staff.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Super. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Vaso. I'm the Chief People Officer here at Ravio. Ravio aims to get compensation working well for everyone, whether that's leaders, people leaders, managers, like normal employees, CFOs, everyone at all. So that's been our mission for the past three years or so. And the aim of these sessions is to geek out on all things to do with compensation. So really looking forward to today's session. A little bit of housekeeping. There is a chat functionality for me. It's on the sort of bottom right-hand side of my screen. And there's also a questions functionality. You can use either of those to pose questions. We might be able to react in the moment to questions, or we might take them at the end. I'll try my best to react in the moment, but it can be hard to keep on top of everything. And we'll also be trying out some polls just to try and make the session as interactive as possible. So they'll pop up on your screen and you can just click through when they do. And I think we have one to kick off the conversation around global comp right now. So the question is, does your company differentiate compensation per location? If so, how is compensation determined? So I think I've just published that. It should pop up relatively soon. Has that popped up?
Oh, I see it on the poll.
Great. Okay. It's popped up for me now, so hopefully, I think it might be a little bit lagged. I'll sort of. Okay, we've got the votes coming in. Great. Super. Phew. Okay. So, okay, we've got a clear winner in market data, in compensation being determined by location, so market data per specific location, and then small sample size, but a tie on tiered geographic differentials, and then a flat global pay model. So great. Let's dig in and find out all about TestGorilla. So if I've understood correctly, Olive, TestGorilla is a remote first company with a globally distributed team.
Yeah.
How many? What's the current headcount?
Yeah, so we're 165 people spread around across about 50 different countries. There's very few countries that we don't hire in.
Wow, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Wow, talk about a diverse workforce.
Truly, yeah.
And how do you? I mean, how on earth do you even sort of begin to approach global comp in this context?
Yeah. Well, truth be told, we've always had global. So when we say global pay, sort of location agnostic, and we'll talk about a little bit about our benchmarks, I guess, a bit later in the conversation. But everyone for the same role, everyone gets paid the same, regardless of where you live in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's been our model since the very, very beginning. To start with, we have our two founders. Otto, our COO, is based in Amsterdam, and Wouter, our CEO, is based in Barcelona. So already slightly geographically separate, and they were hooked from the very beginning on remote work. And in fact, the very sort of kernel of TestGorilla, the very kind of seed of it, came from Wouter in his social enterprise, accepting or looking for people for a specific role, a more administrative role, that he was willing to hire anyone from around the world in. And he was getting CVs from all corners of the globe. And he was needing to find a product to or a system to kind of screen through the CVs. And so already this idea of this sort of fully globally distributed workforce where we can get the best skills on the planet. Now, we believe in skills, right? And so having skills and then layering on that global potential felt really exciting. So already from the very, very early days, having that global mindset when we thought about pay and our team was really exciting, more than exciting, fundamental to who we were as a business. And let's face it, it was also quite scalable at the very beginning. Two founders building a company and thinking, oh, this feels a reasonable salary to pay for anyone in the world. When I arrived at TestGorilla, we were about 55 people. Mm-hmm. And already we had a pay philosophy, which is quite early, I guess, for an organization of that size and stage. So already that started to kind of crystallize how we thought about global pay, and we'd seen it working at that stage for a few years, and so it really worked, and it resonated with the kind of people that we were trying to reach, attract, and retain. And over the years, it's kept on working, and we'll talk about the bells and whistles we've added to it. But it's just so fundamental to who we are as a global company, and what we believe in terms of creating kind of access to this sort of tech startup world, for people in all different corners of the world, that we wanted to preserve that global and agnostic approach.
I mean, it's really, it's really admirable. But did I understand correctly that you or the founders before your time almost had landed on the flat global pay model since like the beginning of time?
Day one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've come back to it. I mean, I think you'll probably be one of the first to say that pay should evolve, and it should represent who you are as a company and where you want to go. But so we come back to it and we check, is it still working? Is it still the system that's going to take us to the goals that we set out as a company? Is it still aligned with our mission and what we stand for as a company in the world? Is it going to create the culture that we want to see and attract the right talent? Like, yes. It's, it's really a fundamental piece of our pay philosophy.
So would you say, I mean, surely, I mean, I can see it, but so would you say the philosophy that guided that decision back then and that you returned to is still, it's still there and still consistent?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually did a review of our philosophy earlier this year. It needed a little bit of stress testing to make sure that it was still standing up. A little bit of expanding too. We hadn't really touched it for a few years. And so we've got certain principles. We've got 7 principles actually within our philosophy. It's probably 1 or 2 too many, but we'll trim it over time if needed. But the global pay piece is really kind of tackled in 2 of those principles. So one of them being access. We believe that working at TestGorilla is a really exciting opportunity. We believe that we're doing something really cool for the world of work. Like we find that really inspiring. And we want to give people access to that opportunity, right? There's people who maybe don't necessarily live in tech hubs or have had access to those sort of companies or universities or schooling system. Exactly. Our mission at TestGorilla is democratizing opportunities for talent. So obviously we were going to do the same, and it comes through in our pay philosophy. And so that's built in there. And then the other piece is around the principle of fair and fairness at TestGorilla. We have long conversations around this, what's fair, and some people, I'm sure, will say that global flat pay isn't fair, and that's okay. And our definition of fair when it comes to pay at TestGorilla is fair means equal. So it means that everyone is rewarded as equally as possible for the equal value of work that they deliver, regardless of how they identify, where they live, right? We believe that impact is determined by what you do, and that should be remunerated for what you do rather than your zip code, your postcode. So we've taken quite a strong stance on that, and that's within the philosophy.
So it sounds like, that's super interesting, that it sounds like, well, to what extent have you wrestled with other types of models for compensation? Because it sounds like you have real conviction that this is the right model for you. But yeah, to what extent have you wrestled with other models, or was it not necessary?
Yeah, we definitely have. I think it's always good to look at alternatives when and be open to changing your mind, or to confirm your conviction in a certain way of working. Yeah, there have definitely been points earlier this year, in fact, where we thought, is moving to a more kind of geographically specific kind of approach. Maybe, by continent to start with, for example, or area or zone, whatever, would that be interesting? And we just came back to what we thought was most fundamental and what we believe is fair. We arrived at the decision that $1 is $1 at TestGorilla, and we would prefer to pay people the same dollar for the same work delivered, regardless of where they live. And we believe that will also encourage a more a genuinely open-minded approach to hiring, also, so that there aren't, at least when it comes to pay specifically, there aren't sort of financial incentives for hiring more or less in a certain region. And yeah, it sort of crystallized how we felt about rewarding equally for the same work.
Well, it sounds like a very much values-based business decision that the founders made originally, and then has sort of seeped continued seeping through the culture of the organization.
Yeah, indeed. It's I think we will always keep poking at it to check that it makes sense. But for now, it's definitely standing up 5 years post launch. Yeah.
That's brilliant. We've got a question from Erica, which is, so the question is, so where is that pay location? What's the HQ?
Yeah, exactly. Great question, Erica. Yeah. This is also an interesting one, right? I think, we're global. So where do we, how do we create a data set against which we benchmark? How to create our pay levels? So we have defined for us a geographical area of Europe. The continent of Europe is where it is HQ for us. So we use Ravio, as I'm sure people watching will imagine. We definitely use you and have really enjoyed using you over the past 8 months or so, to gather data from the geographical area of Europe. The reason why we do that is we are incorporated in the Netherlands. Whilst we have a global identity, there's a lot of people living in Europe and being incorporated here, and our founders here. That's kind of where our pull is. But also Europe, we're taking into account countries with very high cost of labor and living, and also countries on the other end of the scale. So even within that kind of geographical set, we have a mixture of countries that can be a bit of a proxy for the rest of the world.
Okay, that's really interesting, and obviously a good place to be starting. For most, I think for most parts of the world, that will be a competitive rate of pay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would do differently looking back when you think about your compensation strategy?
Yeah. One of the things that jumps most to mind is communicating about it. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this session with you, to make sure that I pay transparency. I mean, we can talk about pay transparency forever, but I think transparency when it comes to pay systems and philosophies and approaches is so valuable, and I think it can really form a big part of whether someone is interested in applying to your company at the beginning, accepts an offer or not, because it really helps them to understand what's important at a company and the values that company has, whether they can see themselves being sort of valued there for the long term. What we have seen perhaps in the past is we make an offer to someone, they accept it, and depending on their personal circumstances, their geographical location, a whole number of things, it's a pay level that works for them right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's much higher than what they would have received locally. Maybe it's much lower and they've made some compromises on that front, but bolstered by the rest of our rewards package, they're happy with that mix. But I think if we miss the trick which we have done in the past, where we've explained how we've arrived at that pay level, mm-hmm. and what the thinking that's gone into it, what that might translate to in years down the line, etc., I think we miss the context. And what we have seen sometimes, people coming from higher, in places where the market might set base pay a bit higher, it can lead to some disappointment further down the line if it doesn't accelerate in a way that they're expecting, or they're happy with it to start with, but over time they've the compromises that they might have accepted to start with no longer hold up. So I think communicating more upfront is something that we should have done better earlier.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if it makes you feel better, communication is usually the one thing that every people leader says they could do better, especially in regards to comp. But also, so if I understand correctly, you mentioned the sort of being more transparent about how the evolution of their pay would pan out, so that people can then make an informed choice as to whether that works for them at that stage of their life or not. Is that right?
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Everything, and also the decision making that goes on behind it with the pay philosophy and stuff as well. What we found is also the more that we've communicated this internally, the more people appreciate the thinking that goes into it. Like just knowing that it's not like a random number that appears on your paycheck or on your kind of your promotion letter or whatever, but knowing that it's a really well thought out decision. I think that's also something worth celebrating at all stages of the employee journey.
Totally agree. And often it's not about, folks are generally reasonable. So it's almost like if we, if they're able to understand why, the logistics of the formula that led to that number, then usually they're really appreciative of that. And again, folks don't always need to agree with it or think best.
No.
Just having visibility on whatever that formula is or the logic behind it can be such a big win.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for things feeling congruous as well. The way that we're able to sort of attach a pay philosophy that clearly makes sense in the context of our organization,
yes.
Really helps. And another thing I didn't mention earlier, we have a lot of digital nomads, and we have a lot of people who are living in countries maybe where they didn't grow up or didn't go to school. So we actually have a lot of people moving countries. So when people move, we don't adjust their pay, right? They stay on the same pay. And that's also, I mean, maybe some people would like it to go up a little bit if they moved to a certain location. But the fact that it's just consistent throughout is also supports this sort of global culture. We have a company that likes to travel, that likes to move around, that has it's global horizons. So it all fits in. I hope. Again, not everyone's going to agree with that, but for me, I have high conviction in this.
Yeah, and I can see that there's a consistency in values and ensuing behaviors and obviously the systems and operations of the companies. That's great. That's great to see that consistency.
Yeah.
We've got loads of questions, which is super. So Ojoshui, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, has asked, does the flat pay method affect profitability of the business in certain locations? And the second part of the question is, does it make it a challenge to hire in certain locations where I guess the European benchmark might actually be lower than the local one?
Yeah. So with we've got a fully global team. We're fully remote. We're fully distributed. There are a few teams. Our CS team, our customer support and success teams, and our sales team, where it matters a little bit more where someone's based, so that we can serve customers in a timely way. But other than that, I mean, we have a very asynchronous working culture. We kind of don't mind where people are in the world, so we don't have regional hiring strategies. So if it's a challenge to hire in certain locations, that's generally okay, because we'll just go and hire from somewhere else. Yeah. There are some nuances to it. There are certain talent pools that do tend to congregate in certain locations, around certain universities, for example, and we need to be a little bit more mindful there and thinking that we are really offering something that's competitive, especially I think when we see with more sort of AI, ML jobs tend to congregate around universities where people have been able to study that, and they often are in certain locations with maybe higher cost of living. So we do need to sort of think about that. For now, it's still working as is. And we're a global business also. So the flat pay method affecting profitability, I mean, it's sort of all comes out in the wash, really. I mean, if everyone's paid the same, we're not paying more or less in certain locations.
Okay, I think Erica's question was quite similar. So have you found that the current comp philosophy has ruled you out from attracting people in a higher cost of living area? So kind of similar.
Yeah, yes, but also no. So I think we know that there are certain locations where, in general, our base compensation is not competitive. That's just the nature. It's something that we accept with our system. Yet, I think that we recognize that within most countries, the difference in pay levels between rural areas and maybe big cities, metropolises, it varies quite a lot. So we do have people in higher cost of living countries who, for whatever reason, choose to live rurally, right? And the base pay is both competitive, and the benefit of being able to work remotely is also, they put a big personal value on that as well. So, and I'd also say that people in higher cost of living, so our base pay is uncompetitive, we hope that we have a very holistic rewards offering overall, that we have base pay, which we hope will be sustainable for the majority, but we also have huge flexibility in our working hours. We have unlimited PTO, we have big learning and development budget. So altogether, the package is designed to appeal to people who require different things in their life stages that maybe a higher base salary alone might not support, right? So we do, we have a few people in Australia. I think that was there. We have a few people in the States. We have a few people in Scandinavia, also very highly paid countries normally. But we try to understand the wider benefit structure also that's important to the kinds of people who we'd love to see working at TestGorilla, which typically speaks to flexibility, I would say.
Yeah, the non-monetary motivation is also evident. Okay, a question from Gareth. With a global flat pay model, how would you, or what levers would you consider using in locations experiencing high inflation? How would that affect people in other locations not experiencing this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Inflation. It's a really tough one. Yeah. It's a really tough one. At any point in time, countries around the world can be experiencing such different rates of inflation, if at all. I mean, it's what Gareth's pointing out. So we benchmark now using Ravio, and this will be an annual exercise that we do. So some of those sort of inflationary measures are taken into account through the annual benchmarking exercise anyway. And just following general kind of market movements, whether inflation or based or otherwise. And that's all that we do, to be honest. We don't do inflation adjustments because we wouldn't really have a kind of a proxy to do that with. And we're pretty transparent about it. It's not something, depending on where people live, it's not something that everyone's always happy with. But that is the stance that we take.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, right? It would also open up the biggest can of worms if you started making inflation adjustments, because why just inflation? Why not something else that's local to a particular market, etc.?
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like your people are sort of really bought into the.
I hope I'm not painting too positive a light. I think there is. We I think you said it yourself, is that we don't expect everyone to be, celebrating from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Like at all. And we certainly know that there are people who are living in higher cost of living countries and who, they enjoy maybe the flexible part of our reward structure. But ideally would love to have higher base pay. There are certainly people like that, and I would never want to diminish their needs or hopes for higher pay. I don't take that feedback lightly. But I would also say there's something to be said for this just having been the way that we work from the beginning. It's what we do, and for better or for worse, I think people are acclimatized to it.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Well, the consistency helps, right?
Yeah.
And to what extent have you found that, like, having this, consistent and sort of very well-defined comp philosophy of the flat rate, to what extent have you found that it's been helpful for hiring? Is it something that folks are attracted to, or are they sort of neutral to it, or where would you put yourselves in that spectrum?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I still think that we can do a lot more around explaining it up front and communicating it ahead of a moment that someone enters into a hiring process or is at the offer stage. I think it's quite unusual, right? It's quite an unusual pay approach. So I think it does take people a few minutes to kind of wrap their heads around it. But I think, to be honest, I think people, what I've seen mostly is that if people are satisfied, people will always be satisfied with the base pay if they're going to accept an offer, right? It would be very unusual that someone was dissatisfied but still accepted it. So there's that level of satisfaction, and actually it's the kind of the wider the wider benefits or the wider perks that that really gets people kind of a bit more excited. I wouldn't actually say that, for now at least, the global pay as a concept is particularly interesting or not. But I think it's pretty interesting. I need to do a better job at talking about it.
I think it's really interesting too. So
yeah, it is. And I think I was included it in the deep dive I did a few weeks ago about rewards at company level. That I can't remember his name, but a compensation expert talking about how, people leaders and rewards leaders should sort of aspire to have sort of strange comp philosophies. As strange being, unique and specific to that organization, which I really subscribe to. And I think it's it can be a real selling point.
Yeah. You need it to. I think having a unique comp philosophy will mean that you attract who you want to attract, and hopefully repel the folks you want to repel as well. And that way, your hiring conversion is hopefully really efficient.
Yeah, indeed. Offer acceptance rates are pretty high with us. Yeah.
Erica's got another great question. She's wondering if you have a higher retention, which may not always be what you'd like to have. Folks who are based in locations where the flat rate equates to a much higher rate of pay than market value.
Oh, good questions coming from Erica. Yeah, that sort of that golden handcuff sort of idea where people are perhaps maybe the reason that they're joining a company, maybe even in the first place, is for purely extrinsic reasons, for just the pay, and that then there's no kind of incentive to keep pushing further, or working towards the next promotion, or going above and beyond because you're paid so well. I hear that and recognize why it would be such a concern. It's something that we did check. It was part of when I said we were poking about whether the strategy still makes sense. Something that is really important to us. We have a lot of people for whom our pay is very, very competitive compared to local markets. I think there we just rely really on two things. One, when during the hiring process, we really want to see that that someone is intrinsically excited about joining TestGorilla, that there's that kind of mission alignment, that people are really excited about our product and the impact that we're convinced that TestGorilla is going to have on the world. Like that gives an extra. It's not just about the pay.
Yeah.
And we're a skills assessment platform, right? So we're checking that the bar is really high to start with, and then we sustain that throughout someone's time at TestGorilla. So we are quite we set high standards in terms of performance management, so that the idea that someone might be coasting, maybe because pay isn't, they're in this sort of golden handcuffs situation, or for any reason, the coasters, it ultimately ends up not being a very comfortable place to coast, because we do have high performance standards.
Yes, that's the way to deal with it, by having effective performance management systems. There's another interesting philosophical question around there, around fairness. I come from Cyprus, and Cyprus has a small but thriving tech hub at the moment. So a lot of international companies will base their HQ in Cyprus because there's a lot of tax incentives.
Yeah.
And then they're also, if workers come into Cyprus from abroad, then they qualify for about a 70% tax rebate for the next 17 years.
Ooh.
On their incomes.
They all moved to Cyprus.
Yeah, it's a long time. Obviously this is a great incentive, and it's meant that folks have come in. A lot of folks have come into the country. It's become a lot more international, which is a lot more innovation.
Yeah.
Now, the downside is that local companies may not be as deep-pocketed. 95% of companies in Cyprus are family-owned, right? So small businesses, and it's a tiny market, like reality check. But what it has meant is that, for folks who work for local Cypriot companies, that pay is totally local. And the folks who work in the international companies are paid, a much more attractive rate, and they get the tax rebate.
Yeah, so their disposable is just...
Exactly. And so this massive divide between these two groups of people who may be doing the same job. Now, with my people hat on, I get why I would totally bring in folks from abroad to nail my hiring strategy. But there is a little bit of me that's really uncomfortable that, this person who's earning way more than the local, the PM, the product manager at the international company is earning way more than the product manager in the local company.
Yeah.
And actually this person's paying more tax.
Yeah.
So, it's a very specific example, but I think the philosophy behind it is, it's interesting that and I totally agree that TestGorilla is thinking about fairness on the global scale for skills-based assessment. But then if you go a more micro, there's interesting conversations to be had there. To what extent do you, I don't know, wrestle with this kind of thinking?
Yeah, it's so I've been in people and culture for just over a year, and I have found the rewards piece so fascinating because of the philosophical things, especially because we're the global mindset does, as you say, kind of create a very specific philosophical angle to it, but also the psychological element of rewards. I find it fascinating, and it's opened up a whole world. I think there are several things that we need to acknowledge in the tension that any pay system creates, I think. So for right now at TestGorilla, we sort of look at within the company the global reach, right? I think the other way, well, one other way, if we're paying locally, would we be okay with paying people in a differentiated way according to what they were, according to where they lived, for example, and would we be satisfied with that, the differences within the organization as a result of that, or maybe, in just kind of flat dollar payout? There are tensions, yeah, and I think we're okay with the tension that we're creating right now, but I think being alert to them and understanding that the impact that might have on our people, on their networks also, right, and their communities, I think is really important.
Look,
I don't know how to satisfy them all. In fact, you can't, right? And that's the kind of the power of the philosophy, is to take a stance. But I hear you. It's difficult, right?
Well, that's why it's interesting as well. But no system is perfect, for sure. So it's about the trade-offs that you're willing to make, and those may evolve over time.
Yeah, for sure. Well. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got another poll, which they're my favorite bit. I think so. The next bit, and it sort of ties in nicely with what we've just been chatting about. So basically, the key challenges when we administer a global comm strategy, and I think the poll question is, let me just click it up here. Yeah, what is our biggest concern about flat global pay? So it couldn't have segued in a nicer way. Yeah. Oh, changing. Yeah, it's a complicated one. It's it's difficult. So it looks like fairness to employees in high cost of living areas. So people who be proportionately have less in their pocket at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And then, so that was first, and then second, with a close third, is setting the right global benchmark level and overpaying for some markets. Yeah, interesting. Well, how, I guess, with the flat global model, how would you, I mean, it's quite, we sort of touched on it, but approaching benchmarking and ensuring compensation remains competitive across such a wide range of diverse markets. Well, I'm sure it's not easy. So are there any locations that you found that, there's just, that you've really struggled to hire in, for example?
The States, we have fewer people working in the States, and we, which is okay. It's the States at the moment isn't a market where we need people in situ, in country. Funnily enough, the UK is, after India, is a place where we have the most people. UK is a high cost, well, it's a high pay country, right? People scattered all across the country, so not just in major cities and not just in the south of England, but all across, and yeah, the pay conversation does come up, of course it does. And I think a little bit more, engineers, perhaps a higher pay if they've been working for kind of a London-based tech company. But the fact that we still have, we still attract people. We've just signed an offer today with someone in the UK. and retain people in the UK suggests that it is working. And actually the broader kind of the benefit, the broader kind of package, I think, is also enticing to people. But it's our job to make sure it remains that way, right? I think, you know, there's we should never rest on our laurels when it comes to pay, but, you know, just the broader employee experience of how people are learning and growing and thriving and progressing within a company.
Yeah, totally. And do you find that, so we've talked about how transparent you are with the team about the philosophy, and you also and you wish you'd sort of, that's something that you wish you'd sort of done better at the start of your journey there. But have you found that any specific communication strategies have worked better than others, or?
Yeah, I think understanding. I think maybe we misstepped slightly at a certain point, expecting that managers would be able to sort of holistically explain pay. And, you know, I would expect that with a certain level of a people manager, right? But I think it's probably also unfair for them to be able to fully explain a framework and, you know, and all the thinking that's gone into it. And actually it's helpful to manage those communications very centrally. It's definitely something that we've learned. I think also at the moment we give people access via managers to the sort of the full spectrum of their pay level and the full spectrum of the one above, so they know what and why they're currently earning and could earn at that current level, and what and how they could get to the next level, which seems to be working okay. We definitely get people asking, why don't we just go fully transparent? And yeah, we're just not there yet. I don't know whether we'll ever be. I don't know whether it's necessary for us, to be honest. Yeah, there's definitely, when it comes to the communications piece, it's interesting to think about where the lines are.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that, you know, regarding transparent, like total transparent pay, so everybody knows each other's salaries, and this is my personal opinion, not not Ravio's or any other workplace where I've been, but I personally think that it's a very personal matter. You know, it's you know, I don't think my mom knows what I earn. So I don't think, I think there are quite a few folks who would feel that, hey,
Yes.
I'm not, I don't want people to know.
No, yeah.
I'm fine not knowing what other people earn either.
Yeah, I think it also so interesting and relevant to think about in a fully global context.
Yes.
Because yes, pay is intimate and personal, and for some cultures so secretive. For other cultures, it's not.
Yes.
And actually it's something to share and talk about, and no taboo and nothing. So yeah, that's another bit of pay that I think is also really interesting to think about in the communication sense in general. But transparency, yeah, I think I'm always interested to know, like, why do you want to know what other people are earning? You know, what might you get out of it? If it's to understand, you know, what could I earn at the next level, that I really understand. That I really understand. And that's why we give that information to people. But to try, I don't know, I'm not sure why more transparency than that really helps.
Gareth has got, well, Greta has mentioned that employees and candidates seem to be valuing remote opportunities more and more.
Yeah.
With into office mandates on the rise, you know, for sure. I think some people the opportunity to work remotely from their home.
Totally. We've actually I can think of two people that we've just signed offers with recently, who are actually willing to take a little bit of a cut in their base pay from having previously worked in London, because the opportunity is going to provide, working at TestGorilla will provide them with the opportunity of working from abroad, traveling back home to move back closer to their family and things like that. And it is interesting to think about the value that people put on the remote working. I think there was a study last year in the States that some people put as much as sort of 25% sort of on top of their salary, just the sort of the broad spectrum of the benefits that remote working would give to them. I think it's really not something to underestimate, the value of remote work to certain people, not everyone, but certain people.
Totally agree. Things like, well, for one, like the monetary cost of the commute, the time cost, and also the opportunity cost of not, I don't know, spending time with your family or loved ones, or drinking coffees. And that's quite an expensive sort of trifecta there.
Yeah, but also rent, perhaps, if you're not paying such high rent, or whatever property expenses in a city, perhaps. It does add up. I mean, let's not forget there are people who hate remote working, and actually you'd have to pay them a bit more in order to work remotely. But that's the beauty of it, right? It's understanding what appeals to different people.
Totally. I'm one of those. I get really lonely. I want to be in an office.
There you go. Yeah. Makes sense.
Gareth has more of an observation than a question. We like them all, don't worry.
Yes.
This is interesting from the point of view of using market data to define comp. Historically, a high level of pay that global flat methodology could represent in a typically lower cost location might have been ruled out in the past as an outlier. However, if more firms adopt such a philosophy, this would change the market data landscape. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also it would be further skewed depending on the benchmark locations used.
Yes.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Really interesting. I think it's I think trends in hiring and trends in pay. It is interesting just to think from a what's the film that I want to reference? It's gone off my head, but it all goes into the pot, right? If you're benchmarking against the market, if you see that there are trends in the marketplace and it's all going into the same sort of benchmarking data, then there will be influences that correspond to those trends for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for that observation, Gareth.
Yeah.
We liked it. And then I think, we've got sort of a few minutes left. What do you think have been the biggest benefits of the global pay model for TestGorilla as a business? And were there any unexpected advantages or disadvantages that you all encountered?
Yeah, I think the fact that it has enabled us to hire truly remotely is the biggest benefit. When we have people who join, almost unanimously, the thing that they are excited about is the opportunity to work with people from all around the world. And for a company of our size, is 165 people, this model works for us to be able to hire people without those geographical kind of barriers that maybe a more regional approach to pay might mean us having to take on. It means that we can scale. We've got a small sort of HR team, so being able to sort of set up a system that means we can just hire and attract people from all around the world creates such a diverse team of people who are very passionate about what we do. And I think it really upholds our commitment to skills-based hiring, to be honest.
Agreed.
I think that's what it comes down to. And I think every single person at TestGorilla is hired using our tests, regardless of the level or whatever. And as I said at the beginning, our mission is to democratize opportunities for talent. And we just want to work with people who've got the best skills for the jobs that we're looking for. We don't care whether you've done a certain university or had experience in, Facebook, Apple, et al. But we just want to know you've got the skills to do that. And we believe that this flatter pay structure allows the people who've got the skills and the interest and there's kind of mission alignment to find a place with us.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, Olive, not that I think you're, planning on leaving, but I'm wondering, wherever you end up next, whenever that is, I wonder how much you'll struggle with if say, the leaders don't fancy a global comp model.
I know. No, I think this is so specific to TestGorilla.
Yes.
I can see all the reasons, trust me, I really, really hear them about why it really wouldn't work for most other companies out there.
But it works for you.
Yeah. But it works for us. And I think Alicia in the comments, it's the equity versus equality. Yeah, we've made a stance here, and I think that will look different in a different organization. So yeah, I'm definitely not planning on leaving TestGorilla anytime soon, anytime at all. But at any other future company down the line, you need to look at what the landscape is, that company, what it wants to achieve, who it wants to have in the company.
Super. And finally, for other companies considering a similar unique approach, any key advice or top tips or warnings based on your experience?
Yeah, I think I can't quite imagine how difficult it would be to move from an established, say, regionally, sort of a geographical specific, let's just call it that, pay structure to a flat global one. That does sound pretty complicated indeed. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're defining one from the ground up, if you are, you have global reach and it makes sense. I think, drop me a line. I'd always be happy to chat. And I think just as with any kind of pay approach, does it work with your company ethos and your values and what you want to do as a company? If it doesn't, don't do it.
or do it really, really slowly. Incrementally,
Incrementally, always lots of testing, lots of feedback. But I don't know. There's always a mixed bag in feedback about comp. But yeah, slowly. Lots of research. And yeah, if anyone is interested to find out more, they can absolutely find me on LinkedIn and we can chat.
Well, Olive, thank you so much. This has been so fun and really, really informative. Definitely for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I've loved it. It's I love talking about TestGorilla at any opportunity I can get. But this is a particularly interesting topic, and I really appreciate the time speaking to you. You're such an expert yourself, so it's been lovely to share the airwaves with you.
Thank you for joining. Thanks to our wonderful audience for the great questions.
Yes.
And see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.